Post-election turmoil and allegations of vote rigging. That's what's happening in Democratic Republic of the Congo right now. What a horrible conclusion after the country's first democratic election since independence. They were supposed to usher in a new era after 18 years of Joseph Kabila's rule, but it hasn't yet. Opposition leader Felix Tshisekedi won the polls, but Kabila's coalition won most of the seats in the provincial and national parliaments. This has raised concerns that the Iron Man of DRC will continue his grip on power. It's also suspected that the poll outcome was a result of a deal between Tshisekedi and Kabila. Martin Fayulu, who came out third in the polls, is contesting the election outcome in court. Even the Southern African Development Community, or SADC, has waded in. President Cyril Ramaphosa is in Addis Ababa, where the SADC Troika is meeting to discuss the situation in the Congo. So will this Troika find a solution to the challenges facing post-election DRC? We have here in Johannesburg with me Joel Maseki, a DRC national, who's one of the activists there. Very good to have you with us.
Thank you.
What's going to break the impasse, do you think?
What I think about the result on the elections is very, very painful to see that people fought for the change, but at the end of the day, the change didn't come based on what we saw, what you see from the CENI, who is the authority who should normally speak the truth based on what the people voted, but the results are not what we're expecting.
And what do you think the people voted for?
What I think people want or wanted a change, but based on the result, there is no change. Just is like a Trojan horse. Just they put Felix Tshisekedi as a puppet who will be saving Kabila, who will be under the scenes.
I mean, there's a speculation that there was a backroom deal between the two of those.
It's easy.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, it's easy because even before the publication of the result, Mr. Felix Tshisekedi said DRC people must forget or forgive Mr. Kabila. This is unacceptable to see the human cost of the Congolese people, how they are suffering, and just to leave Mr. Kabila in peace, this will never happen.
I should imagine it must be devastating, right? I mean, it's such high expectations for these first democratic elections, the possibility of change, and clearly it's not going to happen.
This will not happen unless if Congolese people can stand and do something for themselves, for the change. Because change will never...
How do they elicit change now?
Change will happen if we want it. We have been expecting for other people to help us, but till now, we are slaves in our own country, where we are not free, where there is poverty, where there is no future for the youth, for instance. If you consider...
Do you blame all of this on Kabila? I mean, why was he not able to give hope in the country?
He was in power for more than 18 years. But believe me, there is no road, for instance, from Kinshasa to Lubumbashi, which is the two big main towns in the country. This is unacceptable. And if we consider the resources in DRC Congo and to compare with the quality of life of the population, is really...
extraordinarily wealthy country, isn't it, from a mineral resource point of view, and that's probably why your neighbors get so involved.
Yeah, so ourselves, it seems like we are working for nothing. There is no benefit of being Congolese. Normally, Congo, as it is with its potential resources, should be the gear which will help Africa to move forward. But the leadership is still failing us since the independence. So we were expecting with these elections that change will come. People went to the polling station for the change. They didn't go there to play, but
to vote for more of the same.
Yeah.
Now, we've got a court action coming up to contest these elections, but I believe many people in the court are Kabila's supporters.
Once again, what is happening is not something, is like ex nihilo. It's something that they prepared for a long time. Yes, we don't expect that the court could say the truth, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. But if they don't tell us the truth, I think these elections will not bring peace in the DRC. They will not bring development. People. I mean,
there are really claims that there was massive fraud. Several, even the Christian monitors who were there say there was fraud. Financial Times investigation showed that there was massive fraud. I mean, how did that play out?
Obviously, because behind the scene, those who were in charge, they gave the machines to the people, where there were some machines were not displayed where they're supposed to be. Just they were producing fake result. That is why right now the CENI, the Independent National Electoral Commission, has a big problem with to come out with accurate results, because what they publish do not match with what people observed in the polling stations.
So what happens now?
What will happen, really, we want that the result must reflect what people voted for.
But who's going to make that happen? Because Kabila's got what he wants. Why should it change? I mean, who? And I know you said you all got to stand up and be united, but really, why will it change?
Once again, what we need as Congolese people is a change. And if we see that the government is abusing the power, we will use our constitutional rights, especially on Article 64, to stand up and to fight for our dignity.
Okay, we've got Willie Nhlapo on the phone for us in Pretoria. Very good to have you with us. Give us a sense of what you think is happening in DRC at the moment and how this is likely to play out.
Well, good evening. My apologies. Unfortunately, because of the bad weather in Centurion, I could not find my way out of this place because the person who was to drive me had a problem with the weather. So I did indicate earlier. Okay, well, but thanks for the opportunity.
We're just delighted that we have you with us and that you can give us your analysis of this.
Yeah, I've been watching briefly the what I would call the testimony from the colleague from the DRC who had just spoken. I think one of the things that we should understand is that what he has said represents the general sentiment of the Congolese people, something that we need to take note of. Contrary to what has happened in the past, where the response was a violent one. We have not seen any post-electoral violence yet. That is also cause for concern. It might be a calm before the storm. The expectation of what next is going to happen, I think, is something that we should be watching very seriously. And as the discussions that have been taking place in Addis today have indicated, that it is not an easy situation for people to come towards a broader consensus in terms of what to do.
And because as you're talking, we are looking at pictures of the leaders who are at that SADC meeting in Addis Ababa. I know that South Africa has been called to step in. I mean, really, what can South Africa and other SADC members realistically do?
No, I think what happened a few weeks ago in Congo-Brazzaville is something that we need to build on for a number of reasons. You know, once you have the International Conference of the Great Lakes region involved and working together with SADC to try and find a common solution, we are covering a broad area of the countries that are directly affected by the conflict in the Congo. And therefore, their security, economic and trade interests could be some of the things that we can be able, all of us, to find a better solution towards responding to the challenges of the Congo.
And who do you think is benefiting from
challenge at the moment?
Who do you think is benefiting from this standoff? I mean, as you say, all the neighbors have got concerns, particularly Rwanda and Angola.
Well, not only them, including the Uganda, and to some extent Burundi. It's a very serious concoction of issues that we need to look at, which any of them could provide a trigger to a regional configuration. That's why I'm saying that it is important to get all of those with those interests, who are the direct neighbors of the DRC, to work together with everybody and the AU to find a common regional position that will satisfy everybody, where everybody is a winner. But then the basic problem that we are faced with is that there is a constitution and the electoral law of the Congo that has now run its course. The issue is now with the Constitutional Court. And this is according to the processes that are defined by the electoral law. So they're still observing the rule of law. And whatever the outcome is, I think this is what we have to be at the lookout for. The unfortunate thing is that you can't stop the Constitutional Court from doing its work. So once it has pronounced, we should be ready to engage everybody to see how we can be able to contain the emotions and make sure that this thing does not spiral out of control.
Okay, let me bring in Joel for a minute. I mean, what do you think is going to need to be done to stop violence from erupting? Because we saw violence before the elections. People are concerned that there might be a return to civil war. I mean, is that still a possibility?
Yeah, if we don't find a sustainable solution, violence will happen in the DRC. As long as I think it's time for us, Congolese people, to fight for our rights so that we can walk with dignity in the world. As long as justice is not done, there is no way of stopping violence. And talking about justice brings that people who committed crimes in the DRC must pay for it. We will not let them abusing our right, undermining our rights, because at the end of the day, they are also human beings like us. There is nothing more about them. Why cannot be equal in front of the law?
I mean, Willile, I mean, it's not a good prognosis, is it? I mean, possible violence, it seems from what you're saying that nothing's really going to change. I mean, this SADC meeting could be nothing more than a talk shop, considering, you know, despite the vested interests of everyone involved.
Well, there are many trigger points that we have to look at, arising from the internal dynamics of the DRC and the regional dynamics. And that's what we need to be watching for. As to what kind of a collective response we are going to have, a violence breakout, the that's where the mental is. That's where the test is going to be. And you can be rest assured that other countries that have got interest, they've already indicated and they're opposed to move in military to extract their people and also to defend what they call is their interest and assets. When that happens, what is going to be our response? What is going to be the response of the UN forces on the ground? They can't get involved in any issue or any situation when any violence erupts. So the best way out is either, there are two options, to try and get all the stakeholders, the leaders that who might have suffered a fallout arising out of the announcement of the ruling of the Constitutional Court. Mm-hmm. And if they agree, with all the imbalance and that will be there in that parliament, I think we should all implore that parliament to take the responsibility to look at the electoral law and all the weaknesses that have been exposed. And I also think that we need to take into consideration that the DRC, since Sun City and the two elections that they've had and the two governments administrations that were set up, they are still in a transition. That transition has not been completed. Okay. The government has no control over the whole territory of the country.
Okay. Joel, I'm just wondering...
So those are some of the issues we should be looking at and see how we support the Congolese with that parliament, boss as they think it is, try to build out of that. Otherwise...
Okay, let me just, and briefly, if you will, Joel, what's it going to take to make you go home in the massive diaspora here and in other countries?
If there is a genuine change in the leadership, we have many skills outside. We acquired many skills outside the country, and believe me, if there is that confidence, that trust in the leadership, after 5-10 years, DRC will be a better place to stay.
All right, Joel Masekeli. Welile Nhlapo, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Up next is former Ivorian President Laurent Gbagbo, heading back home, a free man.